Hey there, Amplifiers. You know, one of the most constant things that we have is change. And if you're not really tuned in right now to AI, you might want to be because it's going to impact you in one way or another. And our guest today is really an expert when it comes to um, looking at the changes that are coming around due to AI. Roland Rust is a distinguished university professor um, and the founder and executive director of the Center for Excellence in Service at Robert H. Smith School of Business University in Maryland. He's an award-winning writer and researcher and has edited several major journals and consulted with businesses like American Airlines, AT&T, DuPont, FedEx, Lockheed Martin, and more. Um, it's really an amazing. And he's also the co-author of this wonderful book you may see in my background, The Feeling Economy: How Artificial Intelligence is Creating the Era of Empathy. And today that's kind of going to be the heart of our discussion. So without further ado, welcome to Growth Amplifiers, Roland Rust.
Well, thanks very much, Kenny. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to be here and really, exhilarated to hear this topic. AI, we kind of heard about it for a while. We knew it was coming around the corner, but the impact it's going to play not just on maybe process jobs, but thinking jobs as well, is having everyone needing to step back and think about things differently. So, could you tune us into kind of how your story of how you got where you're at now and started getting into this topic?
Sure. Well, I've been working for many years on the impact of technology on service. And my co-author and wife, actually, Minghui Huang, is an information management professor. And so, her interests combine very nicely with mine in that she can come at it more from the tech side and I can come at it more from the marketing and service side. And we meet at a place where we can figure out what the technology is going to do to how we manage. And it's going to have a tremendous impact on that. In fact, it's going to have a tremendous impact on all of society. And in fact, this impact has already started and it's already measurable.
Ooh. So with with the book being a new book, um, I guess what inspired you really to kind of move this idea forward? You and your wife, your partner.
Well, it was clear that artificial intelligence is just a very, very important advance in technology. And there have been a lot of important advances in AI in recent years, especially related to things like deep learning, neural nets, machine learning in general. So that has started to really let AI start to make inroads about thinking tasks.
Mm,
You know, if we go back in time, we go back to the, let's say, 1900, when you started to have the start of automation taking over a lot of the kind of physical tasks, the factories and mining and that sort of stuff. Well, you know that change made it very difficult for a lot of people because there were miners and there were farmers and there were factory workers that were basically pushed out by AI. And we're still suffering from that today. There are a lot of places around the United States, for example, where there are a lot of people in those kinds of industries that are still in trouble. Well, now we're seeing a shift that's even more troublesome than that one because now we're seeing AI take over a lot of the thinking tasks in business. And the result is a lot of the people that have assumed that they are just in fine shape because they have STEM skills and they're really good thinkers, they may find that they have competition. And when they have competition, they need to move to things that are a differential advantage over AI. So for humans, that's typically feeling. It's feeling, empathy, interpersonal skills. These are things that are much more difficult for AI to do. And therefore, humans need to move into that.
And that makes a lot of sense. So my background as a marketing advisor slash, growth coach, just thinking of how that might impact me. Well, the knowledge and the information, if someone could basically say, this is my situation, an AI might pretty easily be able to give some information of, here's some things based on your situation, what you should do.
Yeah,
How,
that's right. And we see a lot of that already. Things like CRM systems are already
Mhm.
doing that. That's what big data is all about. All these companies are talking about their big data. Well, what's the big data? Big data is customer data. And so AI is going through and figuring out how to make the best possible use of that data. And that's where the inroads of AI are really happening right now.
And so you know, get that being a component, but then when you think about, the relationship, the empathy, the feelings behind it, sometimes people will say one thing, but if for the properly trained person to, they can get a better sense of what's kind of going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, context.
Context.
Yeah.
You can get that sixth sense when you're connecting with somebody. They're like, yes, this is a great idea. I'm full. I'm fully good with it. But
See, if I were an AI chatbot, I probably wouldn't have picked up on all that right now.
right, right. So I could totally see that it's really needing to develop some different skills. Um, so yes, guide us further into this journey. What are some other things that we need to be considering?
Well, one of the big things that's happening relates to gender.
Hmm.
If you think about the old physical economy, the miners and the farm workers and the factory workers, they were almost all men because men are stronger on average, bigger. So they were able to do those tasks better than women. Then, when we had the thinking economy come in, which is basically what we're still mostly in right now today,
Hmm.
when we had the thinking economy come in, then women made a lot of ground up because they're just as good basically at thinking as men are. There are certain technical uh, places where men can do a little bit better than women. Like men are on average better chess players than women. Things that are very spatial tend to be an advantage for men. But on average, I mean, women are just about as good at thinking in most respects as men are, and certainly my co-author and wife Ming Hui would not concede anything on that. But but what's happening now is when AI starts to take over more of these thinking tasks, then we are in a different situation, and the with the feeling economy, which is coming up, which is already in progress. It's already starting to happen. Women are going to have the advantage. Because women are the ones that, on average, just like men on average are better chess players, women on average are more empathetic. And when empathy becomes the big thing, that means an advantage for women. So what we
Yeah,
anticipate is that women are going to be the leaders in the feeling economy.
I could totally see that. And I tell a lot of people that I connect with, that's, I think, one of the things that I look as a virtue, just from how I've been raised, is I say I'm very empathetic, but I got to make sure I say the M really loud so people just don't hear the pathetic part. Make
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
empathetic, right?
Good. Yeah.
So that's really probably encouraging for, women to know that, and to really see the value in that.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
But then men can be empathetic too, and you just pointed that out. I mean, that's a lot of your strengths, I think, is your empathy. So that is something that men can do. In fact, I had a friend when I told him about this theory, and he was saying, "Well, wait a minute, but men can have feelings too." And of course, it's true. The intragender differences swamp the intergender differences. In other words, men have a lot of variation of empathy within men. And so, for example, Joe Biden, very empathetic man.
mhm.
Uh, whereas uh, if you take a look at Megan Rapinoe, the soccer star, she's really good at spatial skills. So I mean, these things are you can't say all men don't have feeling skills and all women don't have spatial skills. That simply isn't true. There's a lot of variation within gender, but on average, women are better off in the feeling economy. And typically, what that means is that the very best people at empathy are going to be women.
Now, as far as like maybe you have this for the business leaders, this is definitely changing. But what about for consumers? As far as their experience and
Oh yeah,
their
consumers are changing too. If you think about the typical smartphone that somebody has, I mean that's an AI device. Nobody has to know multiplication tables anymore. Uh, for example, when I want to know some fact, it's always, hey Alexa, what's thus and so. Tell me what the uh, weather's going to be tomorrow in San Francisco. And Alexa will be able to tell me. That's AI. In that case, it's a non-embodied AI. We tend to think of AI as being like anthropomorphic robots, but a lot of AI isn't. A lot of AI is basically just stuff that's connected to the network, and the network that we're really talking about typically is the internet.
hmm. And so then you've got it's really holistically changing the world. It's happening already. And what are some things that people who are tuning in should be thinking about um, changing? And what I've got a copy of your book, which if you haven't picked a copy up, this is definitely worth checking out. So maybe getting a little bit of focus on what can people expect from the feeling economy.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Yeah, I think one thing that we were definitely trying to do is to write something that normal, intelligent people could read. In other words, you don't have to be an AI specialist to read this book. And I wrote in the dedication that I wanted to write this such that my 91-year-old mother, who's at 92 now,
Oh
she
wow.
just had a birthday, but my 92-year-old mother can read. In fact, she's reading it right now. She's doing it in audio form. She's having somebody read it to her, but she's not. Her eyesight is not that good, but she's able to follow it. And
So,
so, that's something that we definitely wanted was something readable that normal people could read, that could get them kind of up to speed as to what's really going on here. Because what's going on here is something that is not widely recognized yet. The idea that we're needing to move into the feeling economy and be much more feeling oriented, that's not really noticed too much. I
mm,
mean, you've had some books, for example, about emotional intelligence, and those are fine. Those are great. I mean, we're all for that. We think that everything is moving in that direction, but those books don't understand the big picture of why this is happening, and that's what our book does. It shows why it's happening, and the the bottom line is basically everybody needs to figure out how to make their job more feeling oriented. They need to make that consistent with the coming feeling economy.
I think
And
that's very insightful and helpful. And you were saying,
yeah, well, another thing that the book really recognizes is that we're not always competing with AI. Everybody thinks, oh, AI is going to take our jobs. Well, and of course that's true. AI does take jobs. But basically, most people are going to be collaborating with AI. They're going to be teaming up with AI. And you were talking about the consumer, with the smartphone in their pocket. Well, those people are already collaborating with AI. And so, for example, a doctor might want to use AI to do medical diagnoses. And in fact, their IBM Watson has systems that are supposed to do that. And what we've found is that the customers, in this case, the patients of those doctors, they're a little bit uncomfortable having AI tell them what their diagnosis is. And so the way this works better is to have the doctor be a go-between. In other
Mm.
words, hey, here's what the AI is saying, and I looked at these things, and it looks right to me. I think this is what's really going on. You really need to pay attention to this, and here's the plan I have for solving your issue. That in other words, a little bit more hand-holding involved. So the doctor becomes more of an interpersonal person, less of a technical person.
I could see definitely how that plays in. Just like mentioning it a moment ago, there's people that I might interact with, and they may know what they need to do, but they're not getting the result that they want. And usually that's because they have a gap. And sometimes it's not the knowledge that they need the help with, it's what's kind of underneath the surface. And so being able to have some empathetic skills, some emotional intelligence, and planning ahead can really help ensure that your business or profession, you have a plan to succeed in it. Because if you're not thinking ahead and you're not adapting to where things are going, then you could find yourself running into a brick wall.
Yeah, and I think the people who are going to run into the biggest brick wall are the biggest geeks.
Mm.
And I'm originally a mathematics major. That I did mathematics in college, and so I'm as geeky as they come, basically. Um, but you have to realize that that's not going to get it done. It's not going to get it done. People are going to have to figure out how to break out the personal, interpersonal parts, the empathetic parts, the emotional parts, because those are what we're really good at compared to AI. So, if I were a geeky person in a STEM job somewhere right now, I'd be trying to get into management as fast as I could. I'd be trying to do everything I could to increase the interpersonal connections I had and try to get into management, because management is going to be something that is not going to go away right away, because that involves so much context and intuition and empathy and interpersonal skills. So that is a safer place to be. So the kids that I'm teaching, in school, that are either undergrads or MBA students, they're going to see this in the course of their work life. We're talking about the feeling economy being dominant within 15 years, and so you know, and it's already on the way. As I said, empirically, we can show that.
Hmm.
So, people have to be ready for that. They have to be ready when the feeling economy is hitting, and that means moving your job into something that involves tasks that aren't going to be taken over by AI. And typically, that's the managerial stuff and the interpersonal stuff. Salespeople are fine too, because chances are, unless you're selling something on Google online or something, if you're doing B2B sales, for example, that's typically not going to be done by AI.
Right. So my first sort of career was doing web design in that technical spot,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
saw that trend happening of,
Hmm.
okay, that my specialized knowledge that I worked really hard to get is becoming commoditized and replaced with things that now anyone can kind of go in and do that. uh, and us, it's just broadening, it's getting into other fields of expertise. So I really think this is a compelling book and very timely. So if people want to learn more about this book, more about you, where could they go and what could they do?
Well, the easiest thing is to type in either the feeling economy, which is the title of the book. It's available on Amazon. So if you go on Amazon, type in the feeling economy, you can clearly get the book. And if you want to know more about me, or you want to find out more about my other work, then you can just go to Google and type in Roland Rust, and I'll pop up. I'll be most of the top returns on that, I think.
Excellent.
There is an artist in Germany, though, or in Austria, uh, but I'm not that guy.
Yes, there is an African American football player with my name as well who got popular and started popping up in search results, but I'm not that guy either. uh, So wonderful. And before we part, you've provided some great insights already, but perhaps you could leave us with a token of wisdom, a piece of advice that you've learned on your journey that might help others who are on their journey. Piece of wisdom.
Well, let me just give a story that's sort of how I applied this in my real life. Uh, I'm a professor and I teach class. And so one of the things that I realized was I need to put my money where my mouth is on this. And so in the class, I have them working together in groups all the time. And I even take class time out and have them meet in their group in class. And I have them write together. I have them present together. And I always set up the groups in a random way so that they're thrown together with people that they might not normally run into, because that's what the business world is like.
I love it. I think it's to know something is coming is one, but to act and take a new action is another. So I suggest pick up a copy of The Feeling Economy, understand what's coming down the pipeline and how you may be able to adapt what you're doing now so that you have sustainability and provide more value to the future that holds us all, that it beholds us all. So thank you so much, Roland, for sharing your insights, sharing your book, and for doing what you do. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Kenny. It's my pleasure.
To show your support, take a moment to amplify this message by sharing it online. To connect with me or gain more business growth insights, visit www.growthamplifiers.com. Thank you for your support.